So we are starting the sixth lecture, and we will be dealing with the micro architecture. So when the network was down, I just managed to draw this figure. I request the cameraman to focus more closely onto this. Can you come very close to this? What happened to this camera? This can't work. No, yaar, I just want this thing to be focused. Okay. So this is a simple micro architecture that I want to discuss today. This comprises 8 registers R0, R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, R6 and R7 and a ALU which can do 4 operations, namely add, multiply, divide and compare. So let us now go and find out or describe how a simple operation like add R1, R2, R3 will work. This instruction, this machine instruction essentially is equivalent to this statement R1 is assigned to R2 plus R3. As I mentioned in the earlier class, this particular machine instruction, namely add R1, R2, R3, add R1, R2, R3 comprises a set of micro instructions. The micro instructions are that I need to move from the register R1 to the ALU, the data. Similarly, I have to move from the register I have to move from the register R2 the data here. I have to move from register R3 the data to the second input of the ALU, and I have to instruct the ALU to add, and I have to store back the result into R1. So to repeat, this instruction add R1, R2, R3 comprises 3 micro instructions. Micro instruction number 1 is to move R2 to the ALU input. This is the ALU. Similarly, we have to move R3 to the ALU input, instruct the ALU to add, take back the result and store it back into R1. So the first operation is to fetch the data from the registers to the ALU, execute the instruction on the ALU and then store back the result. So there are 3 stages in just execution of this instruction. Now how are we going to facilitate this? In the last class we did see what we mean by a R bit K to 1 mux. Let us assume that this is a 32-bit architecture. That means the arithmetic that we want to do would be on 32-bit numbers. So I have to route 32 bits of data from R2 to this ALU input. I have to route 32 bits of data from R3 to this ALU input. I have to route back 32 bits of data back to R1. So I am using a 32-bit 8 to 1 mux for the ALU input and also a 32-bit 4 to 1 mux for the ALU output. This 8 to 1 mux comes because I have 8 registers from which I have to choose one of them. This 4 to 1 mux comes here because I have 4 arithmetic units from which each will give me a 32-bit answer from which I have to select one of them. So this is how I construct the micro architecture. So in this micro architecture, there are two parts as we see. One is called the data path, another is called the control path. What I have described now on the board is basically the data path. If you can see, there is an yellow line and there is a pink line and there are white lines. The yellow and the pink line are basically responsible for transferring the data from the registers to the ALU, and the white line is responsible for transferring the result back from the ALU output back to the register. So these are lines, these are also called bus. I mentioned that in the previous class, which are responsible for transferring data from the registers to the ALU and taking back the results from the output of the ALU back to the register. So these lines are responsible for transferring data, and hence these lines comprise what we call as the data path of your micro architecture. Now what is we need to control the flow of data, and how do we do that control? The control is done as follows. So I have select lines to these multiplexers. Let me call them as S10, S11, S12, S20, S21, S22, O1 and O2, and D10, D11 and D12. I will explain the control signals. They are as follows. I have two source operands, that is why I call S, source operand 1 and source operand 2, and since I have to select among 8 of these registers, I have to select one of them. I call it as S10, S11 and S12, similarly S20, S21 and S22. I have operations that I want to do on the ALU. There are 4 operations, so I have to select one among them. So O1 and O2 will select which operation I want, and again I have 8 destinations from which I got 8 possible destinations from which I need to select one, and so I use that as D10, D11 and D12. All these registers have what you call as parallel load capability. That means I can load the data at the clock pulse, and they also have a select. So I have to select a register if the select bit is 1, and if my clock goes high, whatever is there on the bus will essentially get loaded into that register. So these registers are 32-bit registers in which I could load data parallelly into the register, and the data will get loaded if the register is selected, means there is a select bit and the select bit should be set to 1 and there is a clock pulse. So these type of registers, we expect that you would have covered it in your digital circuits course, right. So let me now explain how add R1, R2, R3 is basically executed on the system. As you know, the first operand should be R2. So I make 0, 1, 0 for these 3 bits. Zero, 1, 0 for these 3 bits. Similarly, I have to select R3 for the second operand. So I make it as 0, 1, 1. The moment I make 0, 1, 0 and 0, 1, 1 here, please note that I will have the 32 bits fed by R2 here, and I will have the 32 bits fed by R3 here. And these data are fed into all the 4 units, namely add, multiply, divide and compare. And what we need as an output, I need only add. So I set this O1 and O2 as 0, 0. When I set this O1 and O2 as 0, 0, the output of the adder alone is selected, and then it needs to be stored in R1. This is a 3 to 8 decoder. A 3 to 8 decoder is a circuit. When I put 0, 0, 0 here, the 0th line will be 1 and the remaining 7 lines would be 0. If I make 0, 0, 1, the first line here will be 1 and the remaining lines would be 0. So a decoder is a circuit in which given the input, the line corresponding, so if I have 3 inputs and I have 8 outputs numbered 0 to 7, so if I give a decimal k as an input, the kth line will be 1, the remaining lines will be zeros. For example, if I give 0, 0, 0, which is equivalent to decimal 0, the 0th line will be 1 and all the remaining lines will be 0. If I give 0, 1, 0, that is equivalent to decimal 2, the line number 2 here will be 1, the remaining thing will be 0. So I now give, because I am interested in storing the result back to R1, I make these lines as 0, 0, 1. When I give 0, 0, 1, the line number 1 will be 1, all the remaining lines would be zeros. So this 1, the select input of 1 will be 1, R1 will be 1, all the remaining are zeros, and when a clock pulse comes, whatever is there in this line will get loaded back into R1. Okay. So let me just explain this once again. Add R1, R2, R3 essentially means that I have to take the content of R2, I have to take the content of R3, add them and store back the result back into R1. To do this, I select this multiplexer select input as, I set this select input of this multiplex as 0, 1, 0, by which R2's 32 bit comes into the ALU. I select this multiplexer's input as 0, 1, 1, by which R3's input come into this, and now there are 4 functional units and I need the adder's output alone. So I make this multiplexer's input as 0, 0, that means adder's output alone is routed back here, and here I select these bits as 0, 0, 1, that means only the R1 register is selected, the remaining registers are not selected, and when I give a clock pulse, the answer gets loaded back into R1. So this basically explains you how add R1, R2, R3 is basically executed by the micro architecture. Now, already as I mentioned to you, there is a data path. Data path is nothing but the bus on which the data travels from the registers to the ALU and from the ALU output back into the destination register. Now the control path is nothing but all these bits which are the select bits of these multiplexers and the decoder. So the moment I see add R1, R2, R3, The moment I see add R1 comma R2 comma R3, immediately this should get translated into 0 0 0 1 0 0 1 1 0 0 1, where these two stands for operation. This is for source 1, this is for source 2, and this is for destination. As a simple exercise, let me tell you how are we going to do mul R4, R5, R3. So mul would be 0 1 here, the operand is 0 1, source 1 is R5, source 2 is R3, sorry, source 1 is R5, source 2 is R3, and destination is R4. So this is the equivalent micro code for this particular instruction. Suppose I want to do, for example, compare or div R7, R6, R3. This is for mul, this is for add. Suppose I want to do div R7, R6, R3. Div is 1 0, destination 1 is R6, which is 1 1 0, sorry, source 1 is R6, source 2 is R3, and the destination is R7. So this basically explains how your machine code that you see here gets translated into control signals. So this is basically the control signals which controls the select input of these multiplexers, essentially guiding the data from the desired source to the ALU and from the ALU output to the desired destination. So these wires constitute what we call as the control path of your micro architecture, right. So this is about the data path and control path of the given micro architecture, wherein you give a machine code in the form of mul, div, add, etc., and this mul, div, and add essentially gets translated into a set of control signals which are applied to the multiplexers and the decoders to basically execute the operation, right. So the moment a machine code comes in, the machine code is immediately translated into this set of control signals. This translation can happen in two ways. Way number one is that you have a circuitry, you have a circuit which will take this as an input and give you the corresponding control signals. If you are implementing it as a circuit, then it is called hard wired micro architecture. It's called hard wired micro architecture. But if you are not using, but if instead the moment this code comes, you go and look up into a table, and the table will output you these control signals, then it is called a programmed micro architecture. Wherein I take this machine code mul R4, R5, R3 and go and look up into a table. The table is called a micro store. I look into the table and the table will give me the corresponding control signals. If the table gives me these corresponding control signals, then it is called a programmed microarchitecture. If I give this thing to the input and that input is going to give me the control signals, then it is called hardwired microarchitecture. Okay, so let us go and look into this in a little more depth. When we have a very close look into this microarchitecture, we see three important things. The first important point that we should note is that there is a fetch data, there is an execute, and there is a write back. So every instruction, machine instruction that I want to execute comprise of these three steps. One is fetch data, another is execute, another is write back. Before this, the instruction needs to be fetched from the memory. I call it as IF or instruction fetch. After the instruction comes from the memory, we need to translate it into this microcode as we had seen now. And as I told you just now that there are two ways of translating this. I could have a hardwired translation or I could have a programmed translation, and anyway whichever method we are going to use for it, that method is called that stage is called instruction decode. I am decoding the instruction. Essentially decoding means translating the instruction into the corresponding micro instructions which get executed in the hardware. So we have given any instruction, there are 5 stages in the execution of this instruction. One is to fetch the instruction from the memory, decode that instruction called ID, fetch the data that is required by this instruction, execute the instruction and write back. Now when we looked at this microarchitecture, I hope that all these 5 stages are now clear in our mind as how they are actually implemented, at least in a toy architecture that we have seen so far. Now one of the things that we need to, the second point that we need to look here is that when I fetch data, I did add R1, R2, R3. When I am fetching data, that is when the data is moved from R2 and the data is moved from R3 to this ALU. The ALU is not doing anything sensible, nor there is anything sensible happening on the return path. So when the data is fetched from the register to the ALU, that is basically this fetch data stage, the EXE path which is the ALU and the write back path which is this path which takes the output of the ALU to the registers, both these hardware are idle. Idle in the sense they are not doing anything useful. Similarly, after I fetch the data R2 and R3 to the ALU input, and when the ALU is actually performing the addition, this part is not doing any constructive because it is just maintaining the data. So your fetch data is not doing anything constructive, and a write back is also not doing anything. When I am writing back the answer back to the corresponding register, note that your ALU is not doing anything and your fetch data part is also not doing anything. What I want you to understand here is, in all these 5 stages of execution of an instruction, there are different hardware that are involved, different sub modules that are involved in doing each of these stages, and when one module is fetching an instruction, all the remaining 4 modules or the hardware associated with these stages are idle, or meaning they are not doing anything constructive. When your instruction is fetched, these 4 are idle. When your instruction is decoded, the remaining 4 are idle. When you are fetching the data for that instruction, the remaining 4 again are idle. When I am executing an instruction and when I am writing back, in each of these stages, the remaining 4 stages which are not part of would remain idle. So now the next step is to go and see if we can do anything in this regard of, I would like to use every stage at every point of time. When I am fetched, so I don't want these stages to be idle. If the stages are idle, then I am not actually efficiently utilizing the hardware. Can I do something to use all the hardware all the time? So this is basically the question, and that leads to the concept of what we call as pipelining, which I will be covering in the next class. Okay. Before we go into pipelining, I would like to basically tell you something about the performance of this microarchitecture. This microarchitecture is called a single cycle execution architecture. What is a single cycle execution? A single cycle execution is as follows. This is the clock pulse. Assume these registers are rising edge enabled flip flops. These registers are made up of positive edge triggered flip flops. So when the clock goes high, right, this operation starts. So add R1, R2, R3. We assume that R2 and R3 has data. Now this add R1, R2, R3 starts at this point. When the clock goes high, these control signals are assigned to the corresponding select values of the multiplexer and the decoder. How? That what happens in the instruction decode stage is, when R1, R2, R3 is fed, there is something called a micro instruction register. Micro instruction register, which is also connected to the same clock, on which this 00, 010, 011 and 001 would be loaded, where the 00 corresponds to this O1, O2, your 010 corresponds to this, and 011 corresponds to this second source operand, and 001 corresponds to the destination operand, which is applied to the decoder. So what happens is, so your instruction gets decoded, and in that clock pulse, this micro instruction register is loaded with this value. And at this clock pulse, and immediately when it is loaded with the value, the R2, R3 data will come here, this will add, and the result will be available back in this. And in the next rising edge, R1 will get the new value, R1 will be selected, and R1 will get the value of this addition. The answer of this addition will be stored. So between this clock cycle to this edge of the clock, the data is routed to the ALU performs the addition and the answer is stored back. So what should be the length of this period? The length of this period or the time of this period should be greater than or equal to the time for fetching plus the time for execution plus the time for write back. So I should give enough time for the data to flow into this ALU. ALU should add and the answer should be made available to the input of R1 so that in the next clock pulse the answer comes and stays into R1. So the time required for between this clock edge and this clock edge, because it happens in one single cycle, that time should be greater than or equal to TF plus TE plus TWB. So the frequency of operation would be less than or equal to 1 by TF plus TE plus TW, because frequency is 1 by the time period. So the frequency of your processor, the frequency of your CPU is basically dictated by how much time it requires to go and do all these three operations, and that is something that we need to note with regard to the performance of this single cycle execution microarchitecture. So to sum up today's class, I have basically took a very simple toy microarchitecture and described to you the 5 stages of execution of an instruction, namely instruction fetch, instruction decode, data fetch, data execution and data write back, and I also described how a given instruction is translated into a microcode and how the microcode is applied to the different parts of the circuit, and in that context we also saw what a data path is and what a control path is. We also distinguish between a programmed microarchitecture and a hardwired microarchitecture, and we also noted a very important point that in this 5 stage of execution of an instruction, if it is a single cycle execution, then when one of the stages is executing, the remaining 4 stages are idle, in the sense they don't do any sensible work. In the next class I will be introducing you pipelining, which will go and make use, it's an architecture where the remaining 4 stages will be used while the other stage is doing some constructive operation. So with this I wind up today's class. We are 10 minutes behind schedule. So I'll just encourage 2 questions. Yeah, please hand raise if you have any questions. Yes. Please ask your question quickly. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah, you are audible. Please tell me.
Sir, what is the difference between a data path and a microarchitecture?
Data path and microarchitecture. The data path is the part of a microarchitecture. A microarchitecture comprises data path and control path. This is the microarchitecture, the whole thing that I am showing on the board, in which the data path is the pink line, if you can see this pink, and the yellow line and this white line, which are responsible for moving data from the registers to the ALU and from the ALU back to the registers. And then in this data path there are some multiplexers. I explained you what the multiplexers are. I hope you understand why we need a multiplexer here, because there are 8 registers. I want to select one of them as an operand. In this case I have selected R2, in this case I have selected R3. If I am going to do add R1, R2, R3, I have selected R2 and R3 as the source operand for ALU, and the destination is R1. So I have to control these multiplexers so that the correct data comes to the ALU, the required data comes to the ALU. All these control signals are called control path, comprises the control path of your microarchitecture. So your microarchitecture comprises 2 important things. I think first thing I told, are you listening properly? Okay,
Yes,
the first thing I told, the microarchitecture comprises 2 things, the data path and the control path. So the data path is inside the microarchitecture, the control path is inside the microarchitecture. The data path, again I repeat, is responsible for moving the data to and from the ALU, and the control path is to guide which data should go to the ALU and which output should be routed back into the registers. Am I clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Next. Okay. Is there any more questions? Are there any more questions? Who is that guest? So if there are no more questions, I wind up, and we will meet on Friday with and we will be handling pipelining. We will be seeing pipelining that day. Thank you very much.